Hello, welcome back to True Crime Guys Podcast. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Michael.
How's everybody doing? We're back on the free feed. Just did a Patreon exclusive episode last week. If you missed that, patreon.com/truecrimeguys. That's all I'll say. We'll talk more about that later. But this week, we're getting back to our roots. We're getting back to just a good old-fashioned serial killer, and actually a serial killer duo, which I feel like is really our specialty. We've done a handful of those, and those have been some of our better episodes.
And to take it a step further, it's a related serial killer duo.
Family members, cousins.
Yeah,
the killing
cousins.
cousins.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
If you couldn't tell by the title.
Cousins are an underrated part of your life, especially if you're like an only child like I was. They were like my brothers, you know. They still are to this day.
Yeah, no doubt. I feel the same way. I wasn't an only child, but I had two younger sisters. So like my male cousins, yeah, they were like that to me. I had two cousins that lived next door, and then my grandma lived a couple houses down. So my other cousins were always visiting her, and I would run over there and play with them. So yeah, cousins are, like you say, they're underrated. And there's a big variance in people's relationships with cousins. Yeah. Like a cousin sounds like it's someone distant, but you could be as close to them as a sibling, or it could be a cousin you never met before. It's kind of weird.
Right. Like
but
my
in this
cousins,
instance,
several of them lived with me growing up. You know, like my aunt would get into hard times and she would come and live with us, and we literally shared a bedroom. Like it was like we were brothers for a long time.
Exactly. Exactly.
So yeah. And we never killed anybody together though. So
that's good.
There was that.
That's good.
We did do some, porn scavenging and all kinds of shit that you do in adolescence.
Right.
We found where the Walmart is on Centennial in Las Vegas back when it was desert. We found Porn Hill and like stuffed our backpacks full of,
nice.
Probably hobo porn.
Hobo porn.
What was on those pages. But yeah, we had some close situations together over the years. Just never killed anybody, but
never killed anybody though.
Nobody. We don't all get to experience everything.
Your cousin bond wasn't that strong. Okay, I see.
No. Maybe we just were a little bit more well-adjusted.
Yeah, maybe.
All right, let's get into it.
Let's do it, man.
It was really great to hear from someone who has the same interest in the same taboo things as I do. Most of the time I don't talk about it much because people just don't understand. You saw my name on Rich Downey's website and you liked the story about the detective's wife. Thank you. That was one of the more intense experiences in my life. But she had that coming. She was one of those real smug type persons who thought her crap didn't stink. By the way, feel free to ask any questions you want about anything. You cannot offend me in any way. Well, I'll close this here until I hear back from you. I promise. My next letter will be much longer, as I do enjoy writing. Please take care. Always. David.
All right, this week we are covering the killing cousins. The leader of the two, as far as in the killing realm, would be David Alan Gore, who was an American serial killer who confessed to and was convicted of 6 murders in Vero Beach and Indian River County, Florida in the 1980s. Back to the 80s with serial killers. Most of them, the successful ones, were in the 70s, but the 80s it carried into, and by the early 90s, the era of the serial killer was kind of fading.
Yeah, this is an East Coast serial killer down in Florida. Yeah, down in Florida. Man, what a typical Southern name, too, man. It doesn't get much more Southern. David Alan Gore.
David Alan Gore. He looked the part, too. He looked the part. He was a big old corn-fed boy.
Well, you got names like, David Allan Coe, a popular country musician.
Always Southern guys, right?
Yeah, it just sounds like he could be a NASCAR driver or a country artist or possibly make moonshine for his buddies at work. I don't know. He could be any of those things.
Or a serial killer that spent 28 years... 28 years on death row before boasting enough about his crimes in letters to people that he finally pushed the governor to sign his death warrant. That's a funny part
insane.
about this story.
I can't wait to talk about that. You talk about somebody who dug their own grave.
Right.
Yeah. This dude.
Yeah. During his crimes, he had an accomplice, which we alluded to, the cousin, Fred Waterfield, and the pair were dubbed the killing cousins. And if they weren't careless and downright dumb, they would have been far more successful due to their partnership and their profession. So they had the perfect, at least David Alan Gore had the perfect serial killer jobs, 2 of them. We'll talk about those. And then they had a partnership, which ultimately, if you're both fully committed to this and into it can be a great advantage for you in the serial killer realm.
God.
It's amazing they
he
only
doesn't-
killed 6. It's just because we'll see how this played out, but the one cousin got spooked out on this occasion, left his cousin solo, and then shit went awry because there was 2 victims. One of them got away and ended their whole spree right away.
It was 2 on 1.
2
Finally.
on 1. Yeah. And that brave woman, one of those 2, broke free from her bindings and made a run for it, ending their killing spree at 6. However, she paid with her life, but likely saved countless others. That part of the story is fucked up, man. It's like a horror movie. Like, she gets away.
It really is.
Is trying, like, running down the driveway, trying to get help, and then ends up getting killed by David Alan Gore. So we'll get into all that. But let's start from the beginning. So David Alan Gore was born on August 21st, 1953 in Florida. He shares a birthday with Kenny Rogers, Bo Burnham, and Wilt Chamberlain. You just mentioned country singer. There's another one, Kenny Rogers.
Yeah, there you go. Kenny Rogers, man. He kind of blurs the lines a little bit, though.
Yeah.
Kenny Rogers, his fans are very diverse.
I was more a fan of his chicken restaurant than I was the music, but that was just me.
Yeah.
They had one in Vegas back in the day on Decatur. I remember going there when I was a kid.
Yeah, what was it called?
Kenny Rogers Chicken, I think.
Oh, just Kenny Rogers Chicken? I don't know. I didn't even know he had a chicken joint.
Oh yeah, dude, look it up. It was legit, and like the whole setting of it was cool. I remember there being like a lot of red lighting inside, kind of like I got behind me in the video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was
All
like
right,
rotisserie.
Kenny.
I think it was Kenny Rogers rotisserie chicken, is what it was. It was bomb.
And then like Bo Burnham, man, like what a like a tortured genius, right? It's like someone so creative and so funny, but yet he just hates life. He just you can just tell he's so unhappy.
Yeah.
He's so unhappy with everything. But have you seen his new special on Netflix? Did you watch it a while back? Dude, you got to watch that thing.
I will. There's just too much shit to watch all the time.
Oh,
and I don't have that much time.
This is just a one setting though. It's just one setting. It's like 45 minutes, an hour, and you're done.
Fair enough. I did find time to already watch Bill Burr's newest one, Live at Red Rocks. That was fantastic. So worth it.
I can't wait to watch
so
that. I watched the Bill Burr and Friends, but I haven't watched the Live at Red Rocks.
This one's even better.
I bet.
It's just him.
I just
and
wanted
his new material.
I was about to say, when I watched that show with his friends, every time he left the stage, I was like,
damn it. Yeah. Like shit.
Can Bill come back? Can he like help you or something? I don't know. I just get in that mode for some Bill Burr comedy, and nobody else fits that bill.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Right. Yeah, so David Alan Gore resembled the stereotypical Southern redneck, as we mentioned, weighing close to 275 pounds, and was such a firearms fan that he studied gunsmithing in his free time. So exactly what you'd picture.
Yeah, no doubt.
Reminds me a bit of Joe Metheny, which is interesting because there was an author that wrote a book on 3 serial killers, one of them being David Alan Gore, one of them being Joe Metheny. I forget who the third one was, but that book, the author has a quote later in this episode.
Okay. Yeah. Joe, he's from Baltimore.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but they had the same look, though. That they're just big redneck looking.
No, definitely. Dudes. And East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
And East Coast.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So as he grew, David Gore developed a seething hatred for women, not unlike most of the male serial killers that we've covered. Mm-hmm. He felt that they all looked down on him and that they were snobs that wouldn't give him a chance. Born in 1952, his cousin, Fred Waterfield, had a different experience with girls early on. His father was a brilliant engineer that moved the family from New Jersey to Vero Beach, Florida when he was 9 years old. Fred's father then took a job with NASA and was essentially an absentee father to his 3 children after that, which led to Fred's mom, David Alan Gore's mom. Fred's mom relying on her brother-in-law, which was David Alan Gore's father. Fred would now basically fall under his uncle, David Alan Gore's father, for mentorship and for that father figure. And you have to imagine that's when the cousins got really close. They were always together because Fred's dad was always gone working for NASA, and now his mom's always spending time over at the brother-in-law's house.
Exactly.
So they referred to him as Uncle Gore, David's dad. So he, like his son David, though, had a silent and non-confrontational personality. However, Fred was totally different, outgoing, popular. He became a high school football star that had no problem getting a date. They were still close, though. They just, basically David envied and looked up to his cousin because he was popular and had no issue making friends in school and all that, while he was just kind of Mr. Loner and no one liked him, and he got picked on. He was bullied by the same cheerleaders that were cheering on his cousin on the field. He was getting bullied by them. So
yeah, that could be a little bit awkward. You could see how some frustration would come with that, especially in them formative years.
Mm-hmm. Then we start seeing some red flags from young David Gore. His first job was at a gas station as an attendant, and he would be fired after the owner found a peephole that he had drilled between the men and women's bathrooms. So,
that's not a good sign.
Not a good start, yeah.
Nope. That's the beginning stages, right?
Yeah, I think with most young men, or young boys, there's of course there's a curiosity with the other sex, and there's maybe a bit of peeping that goes on for a lot of young boys, but you don't want it to progress, because a lot of times it's like a gateway drug into further crimes. You want it to hopefully die off quickly.
Well, I mean,
but this is next level. This isn't like you're walking down the street and you see some girl's curtains open and you kind of lean your head and try to look in. This is like drilling holes between bathrooms.
Yeah, this is
a little further.
This is taking the extra step here, and also, like I said, he's very close to adulthood here. Mm-hmm. He's got a job as a gas station attendant where he probably works alone, which is why he had time to do this. Yeah. So he's got to be 16 to 18 years old here, most likely. Mm-hmm. That's too old to be doing this shit at this point for sure.
But it seems as though there was something dark in the gene pool of the young men in this family, because his cousin Fred, like David, had a bad temper and a liking for violent sex, it seemed. They spent so much time together in adolescence that they learned about each other's sick fantasies involving power and control over women. And by the mid-1970s, as they entered into adulthood, the creepy cousins decided to delve into a horrific partnership. And they kind of made this decision together that we were going to basically help each other hunt down women and do horrible things to them.
Jesus.
I'm not sure how it got from point A to point B in that. I think they just, like I mentioned, spent a lot of time together, and they confided in each other, their dark fantasies and all that, and it just spiraled, and it just got worse as they got older.
They trusted each other.
Yeah.
They did. They had a pact from childhood. And you'd always tend to trust people that you grew up with a little bit more. Just a little bit more, regardless of how much they change.
Now, their first attempts, there was a learning curve here. Their first attempts were actually pretty embarrassing. The first attempt was they followed a female motorist outside of Yeehaw Junction. Fred flattened her tires with a rifle, but the intended victim escaped on foot. So...
Yeah, these guys weren't in the greatest of shape probably around this time. No, they're not chasing. They're not in the chasing.
Especially
victims,
David.
really.
Fred being a former football star, maybe, but...
Maybe. I don't know. He looked pretty heavy in his mugshots as well.
Yeah, well, you tend to put on a few LBs after school sometimes.
That's right.
He might have been one of those guys that peaked early, too. Was the star in high school, and all of a sudden he's bald and overweight by 22.
Yeah. Yep. As soon as they stop doing those two-a-days, where they pack on all them pounds.
Yeah. So later, the cousins followed another woman from Vero Beach to Miami, giving up the pursuit when she parked on a busy street. That's creepy. So she must have obviously realized during that long travels that this same car with two creeps behind her was, and that's I'm sure why she went to a busy area wisely.
Yep.
That was some of the advice in our Run, Fight, Hide, Escape episode. Advice to survive a serial killer.
Yeah.
If you go back into our catalog, you can find that. Yeah, get to a busy area. Never get in the car with them. Never.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cause a scene. Cause a scene in that busy area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, their first successful rape took place near Vero Beach, and while the victim notified police, she later dropped the charges to avoid embarrassment in court, unfortunately, because it would have been nice.
Man, I bet you that is more popular than we will ever know.
Yeah. And of course, you can't blame them for that.
You can't.
Yeah. They already went through a horrific thing. Now you got to go spend time in court and point fingers at the person who did it to you and deal with that trauma.
But if you don't, that horrible person who did this thing to you will just go on to do it to other people. At the same time. But I get it. I'm not blaming the victim because these awful people continue to do this. But I'm just saying it's very disheartening, like how embarrassing it can be for these victims. They already went through something so traumatic.
It'd be nice if they could do that shit over Zoom now. We do everything else over Zoom, right?
Why can't you hide their identity? Right. Put them on Zoom. Make it look like a Vice interview. You know how Vice always be interviewing these people in the underworld? They blur their face, they change their voice.
Yeah, but then how does that play with the jury, though? If they don't even see, it could be anybody doing this anonymous finger pointing.
Yeah, that's true. Well, the jury, the jury doesn't know them, right? So maybe you
Yeah, but at
could
least it's a
have
real
them-
person that they can see that has a name, and
Yeah, that's true.
there's a record, of the assault or whatever, the police record
Yeah.
of it linking to the same person. But anyways, by early 1981, Gore was working days with his father as a caretaker of a citrus grove and patrolling the streets after dark as an auxiliary sheriff's deputy.
Great.
Two of the most perfect serial killer jobs, which you have to think he chose these for that reason, because his life's goal at this point was to just like basically rape / later kill as many women as possible. He had given up on any other dreams.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
He was planning for
an
this.
auxiliary sheriff's deputy. So he's got the badge, man, which gave him in his eyes, gave him all the power and control and
Yeah.
everything that he always wanted. And then he has
turning
access
into
to a
evil
fucking
Dwight Schrute.
citrus grove where he can bury bodies, which they would absolutely do.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. The Dwight Schrute of Vero Beach, Florida at this time.
He's assistant to the deputy
That's right.
sheriff.
Yeah. So they had two great advantages for aspiring serial killers. As we mentioned, they had a partnership, and then also these two jobs, which were just kind of perfect. Fred, by now, however, had moved to Orlando, so they weren't even living in the same town. And he was managing an automotive shop, but he made frequent visits home to Vero Beach. And together they recognized the potential of Gore's situation, packing a badge by night, killing time in deserted orchards by day. And Fred offered to pay his cousin Dave $1,000 for each pretty girl he could find. So now there's a monetary incentive here added to it as well.
Yeah. Wait a minute. Fred offered to pay
Yes.
Dave $1,000?
Yes.
Oh.
Because Dave had the jobs that could, he could use his badge to, even though he has no idea how to talk to women, he's not attractive, and he's never had success in that realm, he can use his badge and different means, kind of like Ted Bundy did to lure women. He would, we'll see, he'll disable their vehicle while they're at the beach. And then when they come back, he says, hey, I'll give you a ride, things like that.
Yeah.
Or, there's some issue that I can help with Mr. fucking deputy badge here, just come with me. And that's how he's now luring. Cause I don't think, his cousin was in much better shape as far as getting women at this point. We mentioned how he started to kind of lose that high school coolness after he got out. He's now just working at an automotive shop. He probably put on some pounds, and he's just not like Mr. Football Star anymore.
Yeah. I'm surprised. I don't know. I misunderstood this story, I guess, when I was looking into it. I thought that it was the other way around. I thought Dave was paying Fred to bring him girls because Fred was better with women. But
No,
I misunderstood.
No,
Okay.
those days were gone, and now Dave had the power with his badge. So
Yeah, right?
yeah, and I think he was closer to the beach and stuff.
Right.
He had access to those situations. So it was an offer Dave couldn't refuse. And on February 19th, 1981, David found 17-year-old Ying Hua Ling getting off the school bus. He coerced her into his car with the flash of his badge, his deputy badge. This is a young girl who doesn't understand, doesn't know any better. This grown man is coming up with a badge. She's getting off the school bus. She just assumes that it's legit and goes with him, unfortunately. This part blows my fucking mind, though. This is how bold this dude was. He then drove her home and arrested her mother, 48-year-old Hassan Ling, and handcuffed his captives together, which is one of the most bold things I've ever seen anyone do on this show. That is mind-boggling.
On what charge?
You already abducted her daughter.
Like,
now you go to her house and abduct the mother too, and it works?
Just handcuff them together.
Fuck.
Take them both. Talk about not questioning an officer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He then phoned his cousin Fred in Orlando before he drove out to the orchard. And Fred, of course, came out and met him at the orchard where they both raped the victims. But Fred was more picky, rejecting Mrs. Ling as too old, the mother. He then tied up the women to a tree, tied up the mom to a tree in such a fashion that she choked herself to death while struggling against her bonds. And that was while they were raping her daughter. So about as horrific an image as you can imagine. The mom has to sit there choking herself while watching her daughter be ravaged by these two fucking monsters.
Yeah, and that is going to be a running theme in this episode. There is some really brutal killings and murders because these guys admitted to so much. They admitted to so much.
Yeah.
So just be warned.
So the pair then dismembered the two women and stuffed their body parts into oil drums, which they buried. Now, I've heard conflicting reports on this. I've read multiple sources regarding this case, and one study source I read said that Fred left, paid Dave $400 and left, and then Dave buried the bodies. And then I've heard that they both dismembered them together and put them in these drums and buried them. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. One thing we do know is that Fred paid David a $400 finder fee, not the $1,000 that he promised, but these victims, I guess, weren't up to what he wanted. He wanted blondes or something like that.
Oh, I was about to say, he's already going back on his deal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a shitty deal. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, God, there's no honor even among cousins apparently.
Right. He pays up in full for this next one. This next victim was more to his liking. So 5 months later, on July 15th, David made a trip to Round Island Park looking for a blonde to fill his cousin's latest order. Spotting a likely candidate in 35-year-old Judith Daly. Judith was a former Fort Pierce resident visiting from California. While she was at the beach, he disabled her car and then played Good Samaritan, offering her a ride to the nearest telephone. Mm. Man, your spidey senses got to be going off, right? Like your car isn't working, and then this creep's just lurking around, like, "Hey, I can give you a ride."
Yeah, I noticed your car's not working.
The parking spot right next to you. Her battery cable's unhooked or something.
Right. Oh God.
So once inside his pickup, Gore pulled out a pistol, cuffed his victim, and called his cousin Fred on his way to the orchard. Waterfield was happier with this delivery, writing out a check for $1,500. And after both of the men finished with their victims, so the same thing, they raped her and killed her. 2 years later, Gore behind bars would give his description of what happened to Judith Daly. He said that they fed her to alligators in a swamp 10 miles west of the Interstate 95. So apparently they did their duties or their deeds at the orchard and then took her body elsewhere. Or he's just being dramatic. I really think he was playing up a lot of his crimes when he was writing these letters to pen pals in prison.
Yeah.
There's so much more. We have some quotes from these writings later in this, but there's even there's pages and pages more of these disgusting writings later on. And I think a lot of it was just him playing up. I mean, he was already on death row. What did he have to lose? He just embraced the monster thing at a certain point.
It could be, but I mean, they are also in Florida. I bet every resident of Florida knows a body of water infested with alligators.
Yeah, and I don't think this is one of the bodies that were recovered. So that would give you some clout to that, because there were 3 that were recovered, and I don't think Judith was one.
And honestly, it's not a stretch, and it wouldn't be a hard thing to do. It possibly one of the easiest things to do. To get rid of a body.
Honestly,
in Florida.
You throw a body into a swamp in certain parts of Florida, and it's a matter of minutes, I'm sure, before they're being snatched up by gators, because they are infested.
Yes, and there are
you'd be lucky to not
bridges.
Get yourself drug in and fucking eaten while you're doing it. That'd be the only risk.
Yeah, I mean, there are bridges in Florida that you just look over the side and there's just alligators everywhere. It's what do you think is going to happen? You throw a body in there.
What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, exactly. They could just stop on the bridge and not even get close to the water. You see what I'm saying? That could be a really easy way to dispose of someone in Florida.
Mm-hmm. So a week after killing Judith Daly, David Gore fell under suspicion when a local man reported that a deputy had stopped his teenage daughter on a rural highway, attempting to hold her for questioning. And the daughter of this deputy was a little bit wiser to this shit. I'm sure she'd been warned by her father a lot.
Yep.
Yeah. So this guy, I don't think he was actually. I think he was like higher up within the police force.
He fucked up with this one.
Yeah, because Gore was then stripped of his badge, but this didn't slow him down, because just 2 days later, he was arrested when officers found him crouched in the backseat of a woman's car outside of a Vero Beach clinic, armed with a pistol, handcuffs, and a police radio scanner. That one's hard to explain.
That is really hard to explain.
Yeah, you're in the back of some woman's car with all of those items.
How? Can you imagine? I wonder if this woman was like coming back to her car and then she saw him crouched down and pretended like she didn't see him and then just walked by her car. You ever seen people do that? I was watching a video the other day. I think it was on Instagram, and this girl was filming this man breaking into her car. He was literally breaking into her, and her windows were tinted. So
while she was in it?
She's like, oh my God. Like he's trying, and then he opens the door and she's like, excuse me. And he just slams the door and just walks away. He just walks away and like,
I got one better
hides
for
his
you.
face.
I got one better for you. Many years
All
ago, one of my best friends at the time who lived in the same neighborhood as me, his sister went out and got in the family van to go somewhere. She was a teenager at the time, and as she was driving, she saw a man in the back of the van peek his head up. Like in the mirror, she caught a glimpse of him, and she was smart enough to, rather than like make a call and let him hear that, she started texting like her dad and shit, and saying there's a guy in the van with me and all this shit. And God. So what he told her to do, he was a fireman, so he was very like, you know, he knew what to tell her to do. He basically told her to like play it cool, act like he wasn't there, and then at a stoplight or in a parking lot or whatever, a busy area, fucking get out of the van, jump out and call 911. That fucker got out and like ran away when she parked and got out.
Yeah.
But that shit is fucking creepy, right?
That is, dude. Like anytime you have a big vehicle, I mean, even a car though.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. I have to look in the back seat, but I mean, they could easily be hiding back there, especially a big van or an
neighborhood
SUV.
I grew up in, man. We had some weird shit happen. So another time I was in my buddy's kitchen, which the window for his kitchen looked at the time towards my front yard of my parents' house. Yeah. And I was probably like 17, 18, and my pickup truck was parked in the front of the house. And it was like 2 a.m. We were playing video games and stuff, and my buddy was like drinking some water standing in the kitchen window. And he's like, he looks out and he's like, there's someone in the back of your truck. And I'm like, what? He's like, there's someone in the back of your truck right now, the bed of it. And so we both sprint over there. I don't know why. Like we just instantly didn't even think like this could be a bad situation. Maybe let's assess this now. With the two of us, 18-year-old fucking testosterone up dudes, like just sprint over there. We grab the tailgate and look in the back, and there's a dude laying flat, like the scene from Friday, like hiding.
Yeah. And
then we look over, and there's a fucking like Cadillac slowly creeping down the street. Straight scene out of a movie. And the guy, like, when he sees us, we're like, what the fuck are you doing? He's like, I'm sorry. I'm like, these people are trying to get me. He jumps out and starts sprinting down the road, and that Cadillac just starts following him. We're like, oh fuck, shit. Dude. Like, we probably just got this guy killed.
I know, right?
It's like a bad drug deal gone bad or something.
But what are you supposed to do, you know?
Yeah. I mean, of course, he was in my truck. He just happened to, unfortunately, get spotted by the owner of the truck when he got back there.
Dude, my brother-in-law told me a story about when he lived on East Side Vegas, and he said he was sitting on his back patio. This is the last one we'll share, and we'll get back to the story.
Yeah.
But he was sitting on the back patio, and he was just chilling out there having a cigarette, and he said it was later evening, it was almost sunset. He said, and he looks up, and he just sees this book bag fly over his back wall. You know how the cinder block walls? Yeah. He sees this book bag just poof, and he's like, okay. So he's just sitting there. And he's just watching, and then next thing you know, you see this guy climb over the wall with a hoodie, and he jumps over the hoodie, and he's like looking around. And he doesn't see my brother-in-law, and my brother-in-law's like, "Can I help you?" And he's like, and he just takes off, leaves the bag, forgets the bag, jumps over the next wall, runs across the wall, jumps over the next wall, and then he looks over and he just sees him jumping walls, and he's just trying to get out of someone's front gate, you know, back between the houses. And
I'm dying to know what was in this backpack.
It was a laptop. Okay. So who knows what was on it, but they called the police. The police came and took the bag and the laptop. I'm like, you didn't even open it up and turn it on? He's like, no, I didn't want my fingerprints on it or whatever.
Yeah,
like,
that's probably smart.
That's smart.
What if it was like filled with child porn or something, man? You don't want to be anywhere near that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
I was hoping it was just like fucking unmarked bills or something, and then your cousin's like, and then I bought a new house, and
yeah, you know what it was, dude? It was probably just a laptop that he stole from someone else's house, and he was like, fuck
no
that.
doubt, yeah, that's all it was. Or out of a car or something. He probably broke into a car, stole the laptop nearby, and ran and jumped the wall. Yeah.
Yep. But crazy stories, man. You gotta keep your head on a swivel.
Yeah, no doubt.
For sure.
So for this occurrence where David was in the back of this woman's car with all of these weapons and he was caught, a jury would deliberate for 30 minutes before convicting him of armed trespass, and he was sentenced to 5 years in prison. While in prison, he would turn down psychiatric treatment recommended by the court, and he would be paroled in March of 1983 after only 2 years. So he turns down treatment, and they still release him within 2 years for...
That's what I don't get, man. That should be like, you should have to serve your whole sentence if you're not doing anything to reform yourself or not trying to take any help.
And that's super, like, scary thing that he was busted for. You know, he's hiding in the back of a woman's car with a pistol, handcuffs, and a police scanner. Like, it's not your average everyday assault or, like, normal little harmless crime. Like, that's that shows some seriously dark tendencies there.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. His intentions were extremely nefarious.
And then he shows no intention of rehabilitating himself when he turns down treatment in prison, and they still let him go after 2 years.
That's basically saying, I don't think anything's wrong with me.
Yeah.
And then
but
you
of course,
this man.
Of course, he then went on the straight and narrow, and that's the end of our case.
Oh, okay.
So,
all right.
See you next week.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
Keep creeping. No.
So, a short time after his release, his cousin moved back home to Vero Beach, and they were reunited, and they took up right where they left off. On May 20th, they tried to abduct a woman in Orlando, a sex worker, at gunpoint, but she slipped away and left them empty-handed, which I find hilarious because it's, of course, like, you ain't getting one over on that easily on a street gal. Like,
right. Yeah, she was
like,
on to this
shit. With your shit.
Especially in Orlando. Mm-hmm. I mean, she's seen it, dude. Orlando, it's like the East Coast Vegas over there, bro. They've seen it.
Yeah. The next day, the duo picked up two 14-year-old hitchhikers, Angelica Lavelli and Barbara Byer, and they would go on to rape both before Gore shot them both. Byer's body would be dismembered and buried in a shallow grave, while Lavelli's body was dumped in a nearby canal. So they're not always using this orchard for whatever reason. Which, I don't know why if you had the alligators to your disposal, why you just wouldn't use those every time, like we mentioned. Like, it seems like a perfect way of getting rid of bodies.
Well, I feel like you leave a little bit to risk. Alligators aren't exactly like pigs. They might not finish the whole thing. They might rip off an arm and then get bored.
Yeah.
You know
but
what I'm saying?
If it's waters that are infested, I feel like
if they're infested,
whatever scraps are left from one are going to get picked up by another. I don't know.
I would think so, but I don't know. There's a lot of variables there.
Yeah.
You know, in the water. And these gators, if they're infested in that area, they're probably eating pretty well in that area. I mean, Florida's full of wildlife. They're not starving. Mm-hmm. You know, they're freaking dinosaurs, bro. They're not. So I don't know. Maybe they went back and visited and noticed that some remnants were left over or something. Yeah. Or they were just closer to this canal and nowhere near the swamp that they were using. Who knows?
Well, these two victims, Byers and Lavelli, would end up being the only two crimes for which David's cousin, Waterfield, would be convicted of. So, a month later, though, on July 26, 1983, the killing cousins picked up 17-year-old Lynn Elliott and 14-year-old Regan Martin, students at Vero Beach High School that were hitchhiking to Wabasso Beach. They took both girls to a house owned by Gore's parents. And Waterfield soon left, spooked by having seen his sister during the drive. And this is what we alluded to earlier. This is where things go awry because the cousins split up. They don't take on their victims together. And David Gore is outnumbered here 2-1. And things get out of hand. So David Gore later told police that he bound and placed the girls in different rooms prior to raping them. But without his ex-football star cousin present, things didn't go so smoothly for Gore. As he was assaulting Regan, Lynn, nude with her hands tied behind her back, escaped out to the driveway until she lost her footing. So this is a straight horror movie scene, dude. She's nude, handcuffed, running from the house down the driveway as Gore sees that she's fleeing and chasing her. She then falls. He says, about this incident, Gore later stated, "I kept running after her. Then she tripped and fell, and I caught up to her. I started dragging her back, and she was trying, resisting, fighting me. So I threw her to the ground. That's when I shot her in the head." My God.
But this is all in the public eye, though. He's still outside.
This shit would be about the most unbelievable, dramatic, traumatizing thing for this young boy who happened to be riding his bicycle through the neighborhood to witness, which is what happened. This kid's riding his bike and sees this shit go down.
Yes, dude. This reminded me of that scene from Breaking Bad with the kid on the dirt bike who pulls up and then Todd shoots that guy in the desert. Mm-hmm. And that kid's like, And
then he... and then of course Todd shoots the kid too.
Yeah, well, this kid thankfully
got away.
Not only did he get away, he alerted authorities.
Yep, he went home, probably told his parents, who called 911, and this led to a 90-minute standoff between Gore and law enforcement at that house. Cops eventually arrested David Gore and rescued. That part is pretty amazing too to me, that he didn't immediately go in and kill Regan knowing that the jig was up and she would be a witness or whatever. But they were able to rescue 14-year-old Regan Martin, who was found in the attic, naked, handcuffed, with electrical cords tied around her legs. So he must have tried to hide her, knowing the police were coming. You'd think, putting her in the attic. Maybe he was getting greedy, thinking he could get back to her later after he got rid of the cops or something. But dude, a kid just saw you shoot a girl in the fucking naked, handcuffed woman in the driveway. You're not getting away from this one.
They're searching your whole property.
Yeah, dude. Like, and when they look up the property, it's his parents' house, right? And they could, I'm sure, see his record based off of that and say, oh, it's a younger guy. It must be this couple's son who was recently just got out of prison after hiding in a woman's car, with handcuffs and a gun and all this shit. Meanwhile, this crime that just occurred involved handcuffs and a gun as well, coincidentally. So,
yeah, all the arrows pointing at him, man. He's not getting away with this one.
Yeah. David Gore knew that he would never get out of prison, and when he was brought into custody, he cracked and started describing his crimes in detail that he had committed with his cousin. On December 7th, 1983, he led police to the remains of 3 of his murder victims. These victims were Barbara Ann Beyer, Haiseng Huang Ling, and her daughter Ying Hua Ling. He also admitted to killing others, and on March 16th, 1984, it would be pretty easy in court to get a conviction here. He was convicted on all 6 murders, even though they didn't have all 6 of the bodies, and he received the death penalty for his parts in the crimes. Meanwhile, a few months or almost a year later, on January 21st, 1985, Fred Waterfield, his cousin and in crime there, was convicted in the Beyer-Leveille murders, receiving 2 consecutive life terms for those. Interesting that they did most of their work together and killed most of these victims together, and yet he only got 2. And meanwhile, David got all 6, even with only 3 of the bodies being found.
But I mean, what's the point? I mean, the only difference is on paper. I mean, they're both going to be in prison forever.
Yeah, it would just be nice for the families to have that, on record that he killed your loved one, and not just for technically to be for the cousin to not have been on paper involved in those. Only the 2, kind of annoying, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's bullshit. I know.
Yeah,
it is. But I mean, the families know that both of these men were caught, taken off the street, and then one of them ultimately eliminated.
Yeah, and on March 3rd, 1988, David Gore's death warrant was signed by then Florida Governor Bob Martinez. But of course, these things take a long time, even in Florida, and he ended up sitting on death row forever before, we'll get into the interesting aspect of him just continuing to write just disgusting things about how much he enjoyed his crimes and going into detail about how he did them.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, for years, his attorneys filed appeals to delay or reverse his execution. A federal judge vacated Gore's death sentence in 1989 after he claimed he was too drunk to have known what he was doing at the time of the Elliott killing. Another judge then reimposed the death penalty 3 years later. In his final appeal, Gore raised a flurry of legal issues in an effort to stay alive, from the subsequent disbarment of a former attorney to his length of time on death row. The Florida Supreme Court rejected all of his arguments, and while on death row, he continued to stay busy by writing to a pen pal, multiple pen pals, I believe. And in a chilling correspondence, Gore sent around 200 pages worth of letters to a man named Tony Segalia, who wrote Gore and other serial killers after a severe head injury as a teenager in an effort to better understand them. So this Tony guy is getting all this stuff from David, all of these details, which would later be exposed. Here's some quotes from his letters. Go ahead.
Tony Segalia, I'm sorry, real quick. He had a severe head injury?
Which made him fascinated with serial killers because most of them had head injuries, which led to their lack of impulse control and all of that stuff, which we've talked about at length on this podcast.
Yeah.
So the Tony Segalia guy, just because he had maybe he was worried about his ability to control himself and started writing to see. Yeah, right.
I mean, lots of people get head injuries. I mean, I had concussion or 2 as a kid. Like, I don't want to write to serial killers to better understand. I mean, something's weird about this situation, right? Maybe he has urges.
I don't know. I've always found it odd when people are, writing to serial killers and trying to get like this personal relationship with them.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing for like interest, or you're like into a true crime, or you're working on a case, you're being a web sleuth. But the fact when you're writing to them because you have things in common with them, that's the alarming thing, to my opinion. But not trying to insinuate anything about Tony here, but I'm just saying that's just an odd stretch. It's like, why wouldn't you write like a neuroscientist or somebody like that? Why do you want to write a serial killer?
No doubt.
So
So nonetheless, here's some quotes from his letters. Quote, I drug both bodies into the woods where I disposed of them. Oh, and can you believe I collected hair? It took a couple days to recover from that. It was a perfect experience. In another letter, he described his uncontrollable desire to kill. Quote, it's just a sort of along the lines as being horny. You're just getting horny and it just keeps building up until you have to get some relief. That is the same with the urge to kill. It usually starts out slow and builds, and you will take whatever chances necessary to satisfy it. And believe me, you constantly think about getting caught, but the rush is worth the risk. Another quote, several of my victims were a mother and her daughter. The most memorable one was a young mother and her 16-year-old daughter. I kept them both for 3 days. The daughter was a really fine cunt with her virgin tight cunt. I tied her spread eagle on a bed and tied her mother up and forced her to watch me rape her daughter. I killed her daughter in front of the mother. Hard to hear, right? But important to hear. And it helped him get finally killed on death row, because when certain people with the power to basically sign this death warrant heard these things, they're like, yeah, we're fucking killing this bastard.
Yeah, finally.
Yeah, because several people...
they're moving it up.
Several people made sure that the boasting did not go unnoticed. There was a Las Vegas man who wrote to Gore, an author who published the inmates' grotesque letters, and a newspaper columnist who brought the case to the attention of the Florida governor at the time, Rick Scott. And in 2012, Scott, having heard the details of these letters that David Gore had been sending from prison, promptly signed the death warrant, even though at the time more than 40 other men had been on death row longer than he had. So there's a quote from the author of that book I mentioned earlier, who wrote a book called Serial Killer Whisperer, who had Joe Metheny in it as one of the focuses, and also David Gore as one of the 3 focuses of that book. A quote from him, he says, those letters are so disturbing and so insightful into who this person is. Gore actually talked his way into the death chamber.
Good.
Finally, after 28 years on death row, David Gore became the 73rd person to be executed in Florida since they reinstated the death penalty in 1976, when he was executed on Thursday, April 12th, 2012, a little over 10 years ago. And his final meal would be fried chicken, French fries, and butter pecan ice cream. Right on brand as far as what you imagine he would have, right?
I was going to say, that sounds delicious, actually.
It sounds delicious, but also sounds exactly like something this guy would get.
Yeah, he ate that every probably for like almost every other lunch, but yeah.
Yeah. And his final words, he would say, I want to say to the Elliott family, I'm sorry for the death of your daughter. I am not the same man I was back then 28 years ago. I hope they can find it in their hearts to forgive me.
What about all
not
the rest
if they
of
fucking
families?
read
what
those
about
letters.
The Lane family?
Yeah. Also, you had minimum of 6 murder victims, and then also many other people that you either attempted to rape or did rape.
Right.
And
two of those,
no apologies to them.
Well, 4 of those victims were mother and daughter. So you had 4 families, families affected. And you only apologized to one family? What's up with that? But you admitted to 6 murders.
Yeah.
Why are you only sorry for
I'm
the
sure
Elliott
I'm sure they've heard the rumblings about your, boasting and in detail about these murders and how much you loved it as well. Yeah. Your apologies are not necessary.
No.
Fucking
these writings that have come out, and these writings that you put in the timeline, these are just snippets, right?
This
plenty
is
more.
Just tip of the iceberg. Yeah, there's plenty more if you are so inclined to go find them, if you can stomach it, because the one I read was bad enough, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the worst things we've read on this show, to be honest with you. But
yeah, no doubt. That's plenty of insight. That, like you say, though, important to hear. To hear, because you're talking about a man who literally, like the judge said, talked himself into getting killed almost immediately. So, it had to be something like that. But it makes more sense when you realize the death penalty was brought up for this man 2 separate times, right? And he was going to be killed. Yeah. It's just this just expedited it. They're like, all right, this motherfucker has caused enough harm. He doesn't need to be psychologically encouraging other people to do this or torturing the victims.
Yeah,
so
exactly. We don't need the victims having to fucking read in the news every other week that he wrote some more monstrous shit about the killing of their family
because
member.
the news, they love to broadcast this type of shit. They'll play this stuff all the time,
Yeah, and maybe the other inmates that had been on death penalty or been on death row longer than him, maybe they had at least calmed down and tried to rehabilitate them, whatever. They were just biding their time or whatever, and they weren't out there making waves like this asshole.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
there
make
you
some
go,
waves
man.
with your deodorant and
Yeah.
get some Oh My Gaia in your life.
That's right. You make good waves
Yes.
with your BO instead of bad waves. Right. You can make some good waves by using Oh My Gaia, guys. It's a great alternative to the typical store brand aluminum laced deodorant. Okay. This is all natural, no aluminum, all organic ingredients. Oh My Gaia is an innovative, all-natural deodorant, fragrance, and beard oil company specializing in paraben and aluminum-free products. Their innovative line of deodorants inhibit the growth of odor-causing bacteria while maintaining effectiveness. And at Oh My Gaia, they use only all-natural, paraben, and aluminum-free organic ingredients, like we said. And there's tons of scents to choose from, guys, from vanilla, cherry almond, sandalwood, lavender, lemongrass, Egyptian musk, coconut, dreamsicle, leather, lumberjack, honeysuckle, barbershop, sailor, sweet pea, pear, bergamot amber, fireside. And we have our own scent, which I believe is on sale right now. Isn't it True Crime Pine?
Yeah, baby.
I believe we just shared a Instagram post, guys. If you follow us on Instagram at True Crime Guys, you get access to little sales and little snippets like this. By Oh My Gaia has our scent True Crime Pine on sale right now. Like I say, go check us out. There's a link on at shop_Oh My Gaia on Instagram. And because you guys are True Crime Guys listeners, you can always get a little discount. You can.
I was going to say it's always on sale if you use our code word Creeper.
Right, but I think True Crime Pine is on.
I don't know. I just looked on the
additional
website. It
sale.
looks like it's the same price, going rate.
Oh, same price. Okay, I lied.
But you
I
save
lied.
10% by using code word Creeper.
15.
Oh,
15.
15. Sorry. Jesus.
15% by using word creeper, guys. CREEPER. Just because you're True Crime Guys listeners. And again, that's at shop_Oh My Gaia on Instagram or ohmygaia.com. That's OHMYGAIA.com. Guys, won't regret
Do it, guys. Do it. Aluminum's a great metal for a lot of things. You know, if you want lightweight, strong material, but it's not so great in your armpits. So, yeah, stop doing that. All right. Let's thank our other weekly sponsor, another great small company who is making all natural things for your body, Tonic. Tonic CBD has original formulas using CBD adaptogens, herbs, and superfoods, and has been working to deliver the most effective, intentional, and sustainable products possible since 2017. Their farm-to-bottle CBD plus botanical blends are uniquely formulated to provide targeted support where you need it most. They have a bunch of different blends depending on your needs, like chill, grounded, and flex. And they also add in things like black seed oil, a powerful antioxidant, into their CBD, and it's great for your immune system. We love how easy it is to verify their product. So when you get a shipment of their product, it comes in a really cool cylindrical container. And that container on the top, if you tap your phone on it, it will give you access to third-party lab reports. It'll give you information about CBD to educate yourself. And they have values rooted in quality, integrity, and sustainability. They're committed to creating plant-based wellness products that are good for the people and good for the planet. It can help you in so many different ways. CBD there's so many studies out there as to, you know, helping with depression, helping with just overall health. And it helps us a lot. We take it on a daily basis. So visit tonicvibes.com to learn more about their products and use code word Creeper if you decide to make a purchase to save 20% off your order. That's tonicvibes.com, code word Creeper. And below this episode in the description, you'll find links to all of our sponsors for the episodes. So
Right on.
Yep.
Alrighty.
You'll also find a link below in the description to our Patreon page, which is where our episode went last week. If you were wondering where an episode was last week, it was on Patreon. That's patreon.com/truecrimeguys. $2 a month gets you access to that episode, as well as all of our other premium monthly Patreon exclusive episodes. And then we have more content on the $5 tier. That being said, you can pay up front as well. So for, I believe it's $54 a year, you can get on the $5 tier. You save 10% by doing that, paying up front and just being done with it. Or you can pay $5 a month and you get access to that premium once a month episode. Also, Just a Banter, which we do every single week. Me and Michael sit down and just answer listener questions. We talk about whatever's on our mind for up to an hour. And then also on the $5 tier, you get my 5-Minute Murder Show, which is a show that I created. It's me doing a murder case start to finish within 5 minutes. Usually it's cases that just broke, usually involving genealogy. Most of my cases turn out to be that because there's so many cases breaking on a weekly basis. There were old, cold cases that are being solved thanks to DNA technology advancements. Yep. And so I do that show every week. You'll get access to that. You also get access to everything else, Higher Thoughts, strange shorts, and all of this stuff. Also, all of the Sandu content. You get the Sandu stories, which a new one's just coming out right now, right?
That's right. A new Sandu stories just dropped Friday. It's something a little different. It's kind of a metaphorical Sandu stories, if you will. It's not necessarily about a crime, but it's still pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Guys, check that out as something, like I say, a little more off the wall, but still just as exciting, just as
If you haven't checked out Sandu Stories, it's unlike anything that we've done on our under our umbrella, and it's likely unlike anything you've heard in podcasting. It's audio theater in a way. It's a scripted show. We use a group of our friends and family members to do voice acting, and even other podcasters like Leroy Luna is on the latest episode. So
Leroy Luna from Excuse Me, That's Illegal. Yeah, he plays. I think it's like an ongoing thing that I'm thinking about doing. It's like every time we have a driver on Sandu Stories, I'm going to let Leroy play it.
Oh,
just
that's
because,
awesome.
Because on Excuse Me, That's Illegal, he plays a driver. That's kind of his thing. He's like, buckle up, we're going on a ride. I'm going to tell you a story. Yeah. So I thought it would be funny that every time we have a driver on Sandu Stories, we let Leroy do it. So this is the second time playing a driver for us. I think he played a driver of a horse carriage in an older one. Mm-hmm. So, awesome. So enjoy those little Leroy cameos.
Yeah, definitely check that out because a ton of work goes into it. Michael and Andy are burning the midnight oil trying to get that show well produced for you guys, and it pays off.
No doubt. Yeah, those last 48 hours. Those last 48 hours are crunch.
Oh, and I also feel like I should mention we're going into fantasy draft season for fantasy football. I feel like a broken record at times because I know there's not a lot of carryover in the true crime world into fantasy football, but I do want to mention that I have a fantasy football show that I do with a couple friends called Full House Fantasy Football. You can find that on everything, anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can also find our YouTube channel, so give that a subscribe. And we do video podcast every week, breaking down players, rankings. We do mock drafts on there, all sorts of that stuff. So give that a listen and a watch as well.
Right on. That's going to help you big time, especially if you're in the Fantasy Creeper League.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, which we got our league all filled out finally for this year.
Right.
Sorry to those that played with us last year that weren't eligible. We want to mix it up. I know some people were a little upset that they didn't get in again this year, but next year you'll be eligible again to get back in. But we just didn't want to. The only person that was allowed to come back was the winner, and that was the rule from the beginning. We were going to rotate that way. Everybody on our Patreon or whatever, every listener of True Crime Guys will eventually have a chance to play fantasy with us each year. So
right. Aside from True Crime Guys staff, the only players allowed to return are the winner from the previous year. So if we didn't make that clear at the last season, we apologize, but that is how we'll do moving forward. Yeah. So Jana, Donkey Punch, will be returning this year.
We'll see if she can repeat. We'll see if she can repeat. I'm going to take her down this year, man. You're going to be out of the league next year, Jana.
He's trying to kick you out.
We got
Jana.
some serious competition though this year because we're adding in the rest of the Full House Fantasy squad. So we're going to have Josh and Tori in there, two guys that are very serious about fantasy football. Plus your boy Andy's jumping in, which he said he's going to be the doormat of the league, but that'll be fun. He's already saying I'm going to be last place.
Well, you know what? I didn't do so well last year, and you know who helped me with my draft? Andy. So
okay,
I blame Andy. Right. Yeah, I blame you, Andy.
That's why you drafted 4 kickers? Okay, makes sense.
That's why half of my team was Raiders players. Thanks a lot, Andy. God damn it. But it's going to be fun. But yeah, good luck winning this one this year. Jesus, you guys, like half the league is fucking professional fantasy players over here. Yeah. What are we going to do?
Aspiring professionals. I don't know if we're actually on that professional ranking list. Yeah, we're not like we don't have shows on NFL Network or anything. So
no, not yet. Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening this week. We will see you next week for another freeloader episode. And we'll see you on Patreon for Just a Banter in a few days and all of that stuff. So keep creeping. Have a great week.
True crime guys, in the desert we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us cause you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you. Sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army. We out here making murder, get murder. True crime guys, in the desert we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us cause you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you. Sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army. We out here making murder charming.
From the minds of True Crime Guys, come
TCG Weekly. If you've enjoyed this episode, please feel free to check out all the other programs on the TCG network. Every Wednesday, a new episode of True Crime Guys proper, Strange and Unexplained on Mondays, and Full House Fantasy Football on Fridays to start your weekend. And if those aren't enough, head on over to our Patreon account, where you can have access to hundreds of hours of content, including older episodes and other Patreon exclusives like Strange Shorts, Sandu Stories, Higher Thoughts, and the 5-Minute Murder Show. But until next time, guys, keep creeping. Hey, how do you shut this thing off? Over?